Hello, my beautiful alien, and welcome back or welcome if you're new here to the Authentically Blue podcast. I am your host, Carlson. The time is currently 11:18 p.m., Tuesday, the 4th of June, 2024, and I need to get this episode up before midnight. So it's going to be a short and quick one. But before I dive into the quickie, I'm kidding. I just really need to talk about something that's been heavy on my heart lately. I stand with the people of Palestine. It's a genocide that's happening. I've been posting a lot about this on my Instagram, and I'm going to be linking resources down below on ways you can do something to make a difference. Just to briefly go over, you can educate yourself and others about what's happening. You can donate. If you can't donate, understandable, you can boycott. Boycotting has statistically shown a huge impact on companies. Literally, I'm going to find TikTok posts or stuff on articles online and link it down below. It's been making a huge difference. So kindly boycott, continue boycotting. You can't tell me you can't boycott because it's the simplest and easiest thing to do. Just think about how all these people who are being murdered unjustly, and it does my head in. But there's so many places around the world that things are happening that are so unjust that some that come to mind is Congo and Sudan and Palestine, like I just mentioned. But please, guys, if you do listen to this podcast, I do believe you're somebody who's empathetic, who's kind, who's gracious, who cares for people, who cares for themselves and for others. So please do something. I'm doing the best I can, and I have a platform, and it's only fair and right and the least I could do to make a difference in this world for these people who are suffering. And yeah, I'll link resources down below, but thank you. Thank you for doing something, my beautiful alien. If you're here and still listening, I love you. I really genuinely fucking love you. As we continue in this short and quickie episode, I am going to be talking about seeking validation, and I'm going to touch on 3 parts: seeking validation, self-esteem, and ways to heal from seeking validation. Let's go. So, seeking validation. Seeking validation is a desire to have someone else's approval or agreement with what you say or do. I think from a very young age, we are conditioned by institutions. And this could be family, could be school, could be friends. We are conditioned into seeking validation from people. Oh, I need to like pink because my friends like pink. Oh, I need to smile because if I don't smile, I'm going to be frowned upon or seen as a certain way. By the way, as a kid, hold on, my headphones are falling off. This always happens to me. I've had these headphones. I can't even hear myself right now, but I've had these headphones for the past 4 years, and it's kind of crazy because they're literally sellotaped together. Literally going to go buy some new ones after this because I can't keep doing this. Anyway, yeah, I used to be like a huge crybaby when I was younger, and I kind of never used to give a shit. And then I grew into, gonna touch on my personal experience for a second with validation. I grew into seeking validation, and specifically from family. Everybody has validation from different places. It could be your partner, your romantic partner. It could be your siblings. It could be your parents. It could be your friends. It could be an adult in your life, whether that's a teacher or a loved one or a neighbor. I don't know. A presence of somebody being in your life. And there's so many things that lead us to seek validation. A huge one I just mentioned is being conditioned. So I've kind of sidetracked. One thing for me, specifically in my life, that I was trying to mention earlier was I used to be a crybaby when I was younger. So I had a huge change in my life. My parents divorced when I was younger, and I lived with my grandmother for a while. So the crybabiness had to go because I literally went through military training with her. But other than that, I started seeking her approval because she had a very specific way of being. And another family member of mine mentioned that she has it as well, because I wanted to say they, but anyway, they have it as well because of how they were raised by her. It's a people-pleasing-ish mentality, but for her specifically and others, like putting on a facade for certain things. Don't get me wrong, I love my grandma to bits, but this is just an example of seeking validation. So I would go through phases where I would do a certain thing to seek approval, or be nice and be kind and be polite and do these different things because I wanted to get validation of, oh, you're such a good person, oh, you're this, oh, you're that. And I will not lie, I went through that with my teenage years, and then in my early 20s, well, when I was 19, when my dad died, my grandfather, but he's like a dad to me, when he passed away, everything went out of the window. And I'm like, I don't really give a fuck about what you think. And who cares? Because we're all going to die anyway. And it all shifted. So for me, that's when my need for seeking validation with family specifically completely shifted. And I know people's experience with seeking validation is different. Mine just happens to be with family members. Ironically, not with my mom and dad, because thank God they're very kind and understanding and loving. And I'll give you a huge example. I haven't even shared this with the rest of the family. So if you're listening to this in your family, click the fuck off because it's a surprise. Okay, now that they're gone, hopefully you're gone, I will tell the rest of the beautiful aliens. I dyed my hair recently. I've never done that before. And I was freaking out, like, specifically about my grandmother's reaction, because I'm so curious. I know she's gonna hate it, but this color looks so gorgeous on me. Because I don't do video, I'm just gonna tell you guys what color it is. Should I? I'll tell you guys after my birthday, which is on the 22nd of June. So the episode the last week of June, you guys will get to know what color my hair is, because I don't want to spoil it for the family. Anyway, I dyed my hair. Just before I did this episode, I video called one of my uncles, and I was like, oh my God, look what I did. And he was like, whoa, that kind of looks gorgeous on you. I was like, thank you so much. And he was like, I was like, please don't tell anybody. It's a surprise. I'm going to show people one by one. And he's like, who have you not shown yet? I'm like, the only people I have shown is my mom and dad. And they fucking love it. My dad was like, I'm here for it. It suits you better than your natural black hair color. And I was like, I love you. But I was like, I know for a fact my grandmother's not going to like it. And I was like, this is payback. And I was like, this is payback for kicking me out of the country. I'm kidding. I was like, this is payback because they got me to leave the country quicker than I wanted to, which is Kenya. I know they came out of a place of love, but I was like, whatever. My uncle was like, you're crazy. You're absolutely insane. And I'm like, you think I was wild in my teenage years? These people do not know what they have coming. I'm kidding, of course. But am I? I don't know. I'm feeling a bit feisty and savagey at the moment because I'm talking about not seeking validation. Oh no, my headphone's falling off. Hold on. This is insane. I don't want to edit anything in this episode. I think I'm just going to post it as it is. What was I saying? My grandmother. And he was like, do you really think she's not going to like it? And I said, I know for a fact she's going to hate it. But who cares? It's my hair. It's my life. It's my body. I want to do what I want to do. If she doesn't like it, it's whatever. Why do I need her validation when I know I personally like it? Moving back into the episode after a 4-minute ramble. I bet it's 4 minutes. I think it's really important to understand where your source of validation comes from, whether that is family like mine, or that you used to come from family, or it's friends, or it's a person, a partner, whatever the situation is, and have a think and see, like, what can I do to get away from this? Minus seeking validation from people in our life, seeking validation can come from a negative coping mechanism we may have, and that could be self-hatred or self-rejection. If you are specifically going through this right now, you're going to understand what I mean, because you're using this as a mechanism. You're seeking validation as a coping mechanism to lessen the hatred, the neglect, the abuse, and the harm you're getting, whether it's from someone else or from yourself. And you're giving away your sense of agency, your sense of control, your sense of being to someone else's identity to lessen the abuse you're getting. And that's a very specific example, but I really wanted to just get this point across because I do know there's a range of people who listen to this podcast, and I needed to say it. So if you are going through a situation like this where you're using it as a coping mechanism to avoid something negative, I need you to work on your self-esteem, to work on loving yourselves, and to identify that this is what's happening, and I need to work on this because I've said this before a bunch of times on the podcast. Nobody can make you change unless you want to change yourself. And it could be a positive thing or a negative thing. Obviously, most of the time it's a negative thing. Carlson, what the fuck are you saying? But you get my drift. That's what I mean. I just mentioned self-esteem, and that's the other part of this episode I was going to touch on. Self-esteem is how we value and perceive. If you heard that, that's my headphones falling off. Hold on. Clearly we're very authentic on here. We just be. Okay. Self-esteem is how we value and how we perceive ourselves. A huge thing with seeking validation from other people is the fact that we lack self-esteem for ourselves, or our self-esteem is low. A huge thing to improve this is by focusing on yourself, by gathering experiences and achievements and meditating and focusing on what you want. And sometimes we don't know what we want, and that's fine. But sometimes we need to get away from the space that we're in. For me, for instance, something that broke my validation obviously was the grief. But another huge thing was being away from certain family members. This allowed me to get away from the whole, I need to be pleasing or a certain way to people. And this made a huge difference because when you're not in an environment when you are in the same environment that harmed you or hurt you or affected you negatively, it's very difficult to change. You need to get out of that environment. And I understand it's a luxury. Sometimes it's reevaluating certain things, finding new routines, or surrounding yourself with different people, or being honest with yourself. I think that's honestly the most important thing. Being honest with yourself and reflecting and thinking, hey, listen, this isn't going to work for me anymore. This isn't cutting it. I can't continue living like this. I need a change and move forward that way, because it can consume you seeking validation from other people. It is, I personally feel, like a form of a drug, because you find yourself wanting and doing things to appease other people. Like, hey, I can dye my hair. Getting back to my hair situation, I can dye my hair because I want to dye my hair. Because you don't like dyeing your hair, or you don't like the idea of dyeing hair, it doesn't have to affect me. That could be from my grandma, or that could be from my mom or my dad or my partner. Like, hey, do what you want to do and learn to accept and appreciate that. So I think self-esteem is a really huge thing, and I'm going to do a whole episode on self-esteem separately, but I just wanted to get that in here and just say that it's easy to really easy to seek validation because of low self-esteem. One thing about validation as well is that humans have an innate desire to see themselves as good and need for socialization to survive, regardless of how they feel or were treated. And I think this is a huge, especially linking back to my point on conditionality and being conditioned. I chuckled because that reminded me of something I was learning in a lecture, but nothing to do with conditionality. This is being conditioned when you were a kid, being conditioned to behave a certain way, or like the color pink, or wear dresses and not paint your nails because you're a boy. Whatever the situation is, it's all to be accepted by the people around us and to be seen as good in order to survive. It's like, what's that word? Survival of the fittest. It's kind of giving those vibes if you think about it. For me, I touched on this one, is grief. A huge thing for me that shifted with validation is that we're all gonna die. At the end of the day, the only relationship you have that's the most important is the one you have with yourself. My headphones are falling again. Hold on. Oh my God. I can't keep doing this. I really can't keep doing this. The most important conversation you have, the most important relationship you have in your life is with yourself. Everything else shifts. Everybody else leaves at some point. Nothing is ever as consistent as the relationship you have with you. You're the only consistent in your life. Obviously, the relationship changes. I said that wrong. But everything else changes. People come, people go. Feelings comes, feeling goes. Seasons come, seasons go. It reminds me of that beautiful, devastating saying, everything happens. People come into your life for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. Okay, Carlson, is this a TED Talk? I don't know. I'm low-key freestyling all of this. But it's really important. It's like, I don't know how to stress this enough to you, but the only relationship that matters is the relationship you have with yourself. Everybody else comes and goes. Everything changes. Everything shifts. When you die, you're dead. Sorry, that was very graphic. I don't know why I went into that zone, but it's true. When you die, that's it. Nobody... It's my watch hitting the mic. Apologies. Nobody's gonna be able to do anything. People are most likely gonna forget you and move on in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You know, as much as you have an impact on people's lives, life does end up moving on. At the end of the day, things go on, things continue. We're all gonna die at any point. Anybody could die at any point. Nothing is guaranteed in life. So I think the seeking validation bit, obviously it's easier said than done, but grief is a huge thing. Or your mortality, knowing like, hey, I'm not gonna live forever. When I look back at this time in my life, did I want to do that? Did I want to ask that person out? Did I want to go for that acting job? Did I want to pursue that career? Did I want to buy that car? Did I want to try doing this? That's why I'm huge on feel the fear and do it anyway. My headphone fell again. I'm huge on feel the fear and do it anyway. I'm huge on live your life authentically. I'm huge on do it for the plot. Because yes, life has consequences, but at the end of the day, are you going to look back and think, fuck, I wish I did that? Or are you going to look back and think, I did it, it didn't work out for me, it wasn't for me, and keep it moving? So, linking it back to validation, whoever you're trying to seek validation from, whether it's society by being thin or being fat or being thick, whatever body size you're aiming to be, because society, that's what is in trend at the moment. Gonna do a whole episode on body dysmorphia and body positivity, a whole body episode. It's kind of fucked up if you think about it, because the trend's always changing. At one point, being thin was the most attractive thing. Another point in time, being thick was the new sexy. Another time, BBL. Another time, having breasts. It gets so long and tiring. I'm gonna insert a clip of Taylor Swift talking about this at the bottom, and like in the description. The bottom in the description box down below, but it's really huge and important. So yeah, whether it's whether it's your body type that you're seeking, or whether it's seeking validation from your day-to-day decisions, or whether it's going to the gym, working out, or doing certain things that people in your life are going to approve of, and you're not doing it for yourself but for others, can you just snap out of that shit? Just do your best to understand and remember me telling you this. The only and the most important relationship to you is a relationship you have to yourself. Everybody else comes and goes. Whether it's family, whoever you feel like is so important in your life and they need validation from them, they're not perfect. There's literally no human being in this world that's perfect. And they have no right to tell you what to do or for you to seek validation from them. And I think there's different forms of validation, right? There's huge, there's small, there's different sizes, shapes, and forms it comes in. But I think it's really important to center yourself and understand, like, okay, I want to get the validation from myself. What do I want to do that's going to make me happy? Which leads me into, how do you heal from seeking validation from others? I think a huge thing is taking time. It's taking time to understand and reflect and ponder, like, why am I seeking validation from this person? Is it because I feel like they're better than me, that they are good, you admire them? Whatever the situation is, take time and think about that. Secondly, if you have the luxury, or if you can, remove yourself from the situation, whether it's, I understand family is a bit tricky, but if you have the opportunity to live somewhere else, if you have the opportunity to move out or do something, I would urge you to do that. Or I think remove yourself from the person. Like, don't be in the person's space all the time. Remove yourself from the situation, and this gets you reflecting, and it seems healthier, easier, and lighter to do things. The next thing I was going to say is start engaging in habits and goals where you understand yourself. This way you're going to feel more in control rather than giving this control to others. Certain ways to do this can be journaling, meditating, exercising, and reading. So many ways to practice and be in control of your life. Next thing I'm going to say is values. You need to really be in tune with your values and what makes you feel good, what makes you feel, what's acceptable to you, and focus on that. Create your own standards and live your life according to that. The next thing I'm going to say is you're probably separated parts of you that you thought were bad. I think growing up, we all go through phases where we deny or hide parts of us that we think other people are not gonna accept. I think growing up, we hide sides to us that we think people are not gonna like or approve of. And a huge example that comes to mind is I think a huge part of growing up is hiding parts of ourselves that we think other people are not going to like or approve. And by getting rid of seeking validation from other people or from society, I think it's really important to integrate those parts of us that we lost, or you lost of yourselves, or you denied, instead of fighting and denying that, because it's part of you. It's in you, and you either work on improving yourself or denying it's all going to come bubbling up at some point in the future. And it's going to be very tiresome hiding these two different sides of you. It's kind of chaotic if you think about it. And that's not how or what we want to live our lives by. An important thing I think with seeking validation is the price to heal is ultimately getting to the point of not caring what other people think, because when you start to heal, others become distant or uncomfortable with you healing, and this shouldn't stop your progress. I'm going to try my best to link this to an example that happened in my life as I wrap up this episode. when I moved out to a city that I did not know anybody, got to know people, and learned and discovered myself even more, I had to get rid of the mentality. Not get rid, that's the wrong word to use, but I had to learn how to work with people, accepting the new me, the me that did things without approval, the me that got used to being independent and living alone. Whereas previously it would bother me like, hey, this person isn't doing this, so maybe I'm not worthy, or whatever the situation is, and it's tricky and complicated and hard. But when I got rid of the idea that people can be distant and uncomfortable with how I'm feeling, but it's healthy for me and I'm not being toxic and horrible to someone else, you just gotta live life, man. You just gotta do you. You gotta do the best you can and keep it moving. And that's a wrap for this episode. Hello, my beautiful alien, and welcome back, or welcome if you're new here to the Authentically Blue podcast. I am your host, Carlstone. The time is currently 11:18 p.m. Tuesday, the 4th of June, 2024, and I need to get this episode up before midnight. So it's gonna be a short and quick one. But before I dive into the quickie, I'm kidding. I just really need to talk about something that's been heavy on my heart lately. I stand with the people of Palestine. It's a genocide that's happening. I've been posting a lot about this on my Instagram, and I'm going to be linking resources down below on ways you can do something to make a difference. Just to briefly go over, you can educate yourself and others about what's happening. You can donate. If you can't donate, understandable, you can boycott. Boycotting has statistically shown a huge impact on companies. Literally, I'm gonna find TikTok posts or stuff on articles online and link it down below. It's been making a huge difference. So kindly boycott, continue boycotting. You can't tell me you can't boycott, because it's the simplest and easiest thing to do. Just think about how all these people who are being murdered unjustly, and it does my head in. But there's so many places around the world that things are happening that are so unjust, that some that come to mind is Congo and Sudan and Palestine, like I just mentioned. But please, guys, if you do listen to this podcast, I do believe you're somebody who's empathetic, who's kind, who's gracious, who cares for people, who cares for themselves and for others. So please do something. I'm doing the best I can, and I have a platform, and it's only fair and right and the least I could do to make a difference in this world for these people who are suffering. And yeah, I'll link resources down below. But thank you.